I have the pleasure to introduce someone that I've had the honor of working with in the past at BHDP Architecture, Samantha Tallo. Samantha draws from her experience in retail, workplace, healthcare, and hospitality design to create spaces that are open and energizing. Her approach to the design process places her clients and their employees and customers as top priority, using design thinking and the human-centered process to encourage interaction and understanding. Here's Sam with Designing for Agile Work and Employee Experience. Samantha Tallo, take it away.
Thanks, Brian. So I was actually going to give you a shout out, but you did that for yourself. Coincidentally, yes, I did work with Brian Trainer on this specific project for 8451, and Jamie Munzer, who helped organize this event, is my cousin. So it's pretty exciting to be here and participate. I'm a senior designer at BHDP. I co-opted with them in college, got hired on right after, and I've never left. So this is a case study on Agile work and employee experience with 8451. We started collaborating a few years back at their headquarters in downtown Cincinnati. We then had an opportunity for a new 300-person office in Chicago. What we did was a lot of testing and piloting. So prototypes were key to providing success. In the end, we tested around 200 people in Cincinnati and translated what we learned there to Chicago. So 8451 wanted to join the ranks of other fast-growing tech hubs, and they really wanted to expand their data science and engineering hub. And they found, what better place than, Chicago's most historically recognized building, build post office. So we had to come up with a solution that not only met their expectations of telling their story through space, but as well as solving their problems to create a new purposeful design. Throughout this presentation, you will hear from our client and end users and just get their perspective and pain points and how we help solve their problems of Agile work.
8451 was created to support Kroger with data science, data analytics, and help them with understanding their data. It's to make,
so there should be voiceover here.
Every time we use our cell phone, we get on Facebook,
I can
Twitter,
try to ad-lib, but this is our client speaking, and he is basically just talking about who 8451 is and their partnership with Kroger, and their main goal is just to make everyone's lives easier. And they do that by basically taking data points from...
Sam,
yep.
They can hear on the live feed. So
oh, sorry. So I would say design encompasses all aspects of the workforce and helps keep them connected. So when we understand and empathize with the people we're designing for, we create meaningful and memorable experiences. That's where research and understanding of the users came in. So we needed to benchmark where they're at today and where they wanted to be.
I would say personally, my biggest struggle is conference room space. It's fairly easy to get a conference room for 4 or less people. After that, it starts getting pretty tough, and especially if you kind of have a high priority situation where you need to pull a group of people together.
So one thing that's frustrating is we have our storage cabinets under our desk, which is the only place to put things. So if you have your stuff on top of your desk, then you can't pair with someone because they can't come over and put their laptop down.
We have pods of 6, and if multiple people are pairing up on the same side, you're almost shoulder to shoulder.
And when they do come over to pair, the storage cabinet's in the way. So if there's multiple people on one side, it interferes that way. It's just hard to get that many people under the desk.
So there's just not a lot of mobility. We have enough to where we can move around and be flexible with our laptops, but you can also get pinned down and be kind of stuck.
We tend to work pretty loudly, and that's because we're collaborating. But for those people that are remote, I know it's always kind of been that issue across the board is sound. Makes it pretty tough.
It's loud. There's white noise machine would help, which helps, but there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of people talking and solving problems together in a small space. We don't have a lot of opportunity to go to quiet space as a pair. Our quiet rooms are really meant for a person, not 2 people. The acoustics in general are tough. It's an open space, so more standard data. We really have to pack in tight because you can't hear. We have to use, jokingly our outside ears sometimes to hear each other.
To take a step back, we all need to know what Agile means, and really there is no one meaning, and it means different things to different people. But Agile as a methodology is really just a way of working to adapt to ever-changing requirements. The biggest notion is that there's little planning and little execution at a time. Also within the process are scrums. So every day within a 2-week period, they have sprints and a daily stand-up. Ideally, they're less than 15 minutes, can be 5 to 15. But there's 3 main questions you ask your team, and it's what did you do yesterday, what are you doing tomorrow, and do you have any blockers?
Important. So we're always moving around. We're always shifting desks. We don't always go to the same person's desk. We're not always pairing with the same person. We switch pretty much every week. So we spend 1 week with that person and going back and forth between each other's desks. So we needed a way to really just be able to kind of sit down.
Agile teams can vary from quite small to quite large, 10, 20, 40 people, depending on the team, some people even being remote. But our biggest findings from our research was taking a lot from feedback from the users and understanding what best would support Agile work, which we now know included scrums and paired programming. Not all Agile teams work this way. Our big concepts were around sharing ideas, co-locating resources, mobile workstations, larger conference rooms, visitor desking, and personal storage. So over 2 floors in Cincinnati, it was around 100 people at the end of the day. We tested these teams and they would change monthly. The 3 neighborhoods piloted different solutions. It could be, if you moved your desk that day up and down, if they moved it, around the pod, if their stand-ups were working in this space. So it's just something to really inform our final design decisions.
We're noticing our engineering and our developer type groups working with Agile, they literally took it upon themselves to kind of reorient the office to make it work for them. So we started watching, studying, with the help of BHDP, doing the deep dives, the one-on-one interviews, and it basically came down to where we were assigning 1 person per desk, permanent locations, so they didn't have the ability to move per se. So the new way of how we're going to do things in the test fit is that everybody will have a desk, but that desk is going to be movable. So they can move around in the teams. And the way our folks work on that particular floor is, every other day they could be switching around to a new team depending on the project and what's the task at hand. So it's going to give them that complete flexibility to maneuver around the space with some general guidelines that they can do their best work.
So you just heard from our client, but basically the solution was not about changing desks anymore. It was about how to get 2 people to work together, noting not all 2 people work together all the time. So from that came this highly flexible neighborhood approach. It allowed for teams to have a modular collaborative space with the appropriate amount of areas dedicated, to individual, paired, and group work. And there's a high emphasis on these scrum areas, which we call command centers. Each neighborhood could be made up of, 1 30-person team or 3 8-person teams, depending. So each had a kit of parts to pull from. And we recognize, there was a huge desire for personalization and sharing ideas. Also a need for storage individually and communally, but most importantly, noting not all people work the same. Once we had a plan and strategy in place, there was a significant challenge with power. Not only because of code restrictions, which influence the design, but when you have people constantly moving their desk, how are you going to keep it clean and to code? So what we developed was this cord monster, we kept calling it. As many of you know, the fire of 1871 in Chicago set the power restrictions and regulations we needed to comply with, specifically like how long the length of each cord of the desk could be, and different variances we needed to get approval from the city on. So in an environment that is constantly mobile, consciously designing an efficient grid pattern and walking path is critical to keeping them productive and organized without really having to tell someone where they can and can't move. So at each power intersection, at each node, it allows the user to pivot around that point and really have the business control the egress from a code perspective. So 8451 is a company that pushes the limits of data to transform lives. Our concept uses a collection of transformative graphics. You can see that both metaphoric and deliberate. And this echoes 8451's relentless commitment to uncovering the next behavioral trends. The design emphasizes analog to digital experiences and interactions. The concept around information transformation is seen through the blending of patterns and the texture, graphics morphing through space, and the saturation of color. So this is a concept animation that we did as an early design study, and really wanted to focus on this arrival point as you enter. They're located on the 6th floor of the old post office, and you're greeted with this, front of house hospitality area for guests. It's meant to attract and retain new talent and clients, which is, being in Chicago, such a competitive market. And so this initial front of house space captures that initial moment and what makes the user want to come back. It also can be used for internal events and individual working. Since this is such a rapidly growing company, capacity was always at the forefront. Throughout the whole floor, we wanted to create a space that not only reflects the brand, but a space that how the people should feel. So it was key to connect the culture and brand back to Cincinnati. We also wanted to preserve a lot of the elements of the original post office. So you can see with the exposed structure and ceiling. And then also really inspire collaboration and productivity, as you can see in these command centers. Within all the work areas, teams are strategically placed close to shared resources in their given neighborhood, and meeting spaces are supported with seamless technology and various ways of sharing ideas. The project completed in November of last year. How people work, feel, and behave in a space go hand in hand with the overall workplace experience. At the end of the day, we wanted to provide variety by supporting multiple ways of working. We wanted to give the user choice to support how and where to effectively work. And most importantly, wanted to have the users experience flexibility by modifying and adapting the environment as needed. So big thank you to everyone. Sorry for my technical error earlier, but everyone else who helped work on this project, and for everyone at UC for helping make this event, everyone for listening. So thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Samantha Tallo with BHDP, and no need to apologize. I didn't know either. Somebody sent it to me in the chat. I thought something was wrong as well, but apparently it's working fine for the live feed. So now we know. And if I can do a weird flex on that, if you liked the hand-drawn animations, that was me. I did that. That's my fault if you didn't like it. Also, I'd never done them before, so that was a lot of fun.
They were awesome. Thank you, Brian.
That was fun. So thank you, Sam.